Hi guys, I'm back online now. Um, are you able to hear me now? Okay, perfect. So sorry about that. I have no idea what happened there. Thank you for your patience. Let me just get up this presentation again. Um, so I just mentioned there, thank you so much for joining today. I'm gonna keep today's webinar short and sweet because I know everyone's really busy with end of financial year. Um, so yeah, appreciate everyone for joining. Um, Yeah, everyone is muted, but the webinar will be recorded. So if you need to hop off early or if you need to pass this on to anyone else that wasn't able to make it, it will be up and online within 24 hours. I am going to do a little frequently asked questions section at the end because we are getting a lot of reoccurring questions in support. So I'm going to touch on all of them at the end. But if you do have any additional questions, feel free to post them into the chat. Yeah, the chat box on the right-hand side. And today, what we're going to be going through is Payday Super because, yeah, we are seeing a lot of questions with that in support at the moment, specifically around HeroClear. So I'm going to do a little demo with HeroClear 2 to show you the setup and how it works to process Super. Also going to touch on what clearing options you actually have. So I know a lot of businesses are using Beam at the moment. You can continue using Beam the way that you are. HeroClear is just an alternative option, but I will touch on the difference between both of them. Just a quick intro about who we are at PayCat for anyone that doesn't already work with us. We help NDIS providers simplify complex pay rules, automate the heavy lifting, and get payroll right the first time, every time. So our team are Shads experts. We know the award inside out, and we're here to help answer your questions and support your setup. Make sure you're 100% compliant. So what we're going to cover today, again, I'll hopefully get through this in about 30 minutes. We're going to touch on Payday Super, the clearing options you have. I'm going to do the full HeroClear demo and then the frequently asked questions, and then we can go through any questions that you guys might have as well. So jumping into Payday Super. So there are three major operational changes employers need to prepare for. So the first thing is Super must be paid within 7 business days. So from July 1st, 2026, a few days ago, Super must be calculated, paid, cleared, and received by the employee's Super Fund within 7 business days of payday. So that replaces what was previously done, which was the quarterly payment system. So payroll processes do have to be a lot more accurate as manual corrections become a lot more difficult. Secondly, we have increased late payment penalties. So the new super guarantee charge regime is considerably stricter. So even if employees receive their wages on time, late super contributions can still trigger penalties. So interest begins accruing immediately, and the businesses operating on tight margins could face significant financial consequences from even minor delays. 3 is real-time processing. So payroll systems will need to provide accurate super data for every pay run. Disconnected payroll and super processes create a much greater risk of rejected contributions, delayed payments, and compliance issues. The common theme across all 3 of these changes is simple. So manual processes that might have been working for you previously simply are not going to be sustainable under Payday Super. Um, so additional legislative changes. There are several additional changes accompanying Payday Super. So first is member verification requests, which is MVR. Before contributions can be made, employee superfund details must be verified. Now, PayCat will perform these checks automatically whenever employees join or update their superfund details, so you don't have to worry about that. All integrated. Now, for new employees that you onboard, for an employee's first contribution to a new fund, employers have up to 20 business days for the payment to reach the fund. So after that first contribution, the standard 7 business days requirement applies, but initially they have 20 days. Then we have qualifying earnings. So super will now be calculated using qualifying earnings, which includes ordinary time earnings, loadings, commissions, salary sacrifice contributions. Now termination lump sums remain excluded. There is the option for faster payments as well. So SuperStream will support faster payments through this new payment platform called Pay2, which I'm going to touch on a little bit later in the HeroClear setup. Improved error messaging also allows employers to identify and resolve issues much sooner than under the previous processes. So all of that is already integrated with the system. There's also faster fund processing. So super funds themselves must now allocate or reject contributions within 3 business days instead of previously they had 20 business days. So this means the errors will be identified much sooner. It's going to allow for quicker corrections, but it's also leaving far less room for delay. It's also going to expand STP reporting. So single touch payroll reporting will expand to include the qualifying earnings and super owed for each pay cycle. And that's going to give the ATO real-time visibility of employer obligations. Finally, we have the annual maximum contribution base. The maximum contribution base will move from a quarterly calculation to annual calculation, changing how high income earners are managed. PayCap Payroll will automatically manage these calculations. So the cost of getting payday super wrong. So let's take a closer look at what the super guarantee charge can actually cost your business. So when people think about late super payments, they often assume it's simply a matter of paying what they owe, but unfortunately that's not the case. The costs quickly stack up. First, you have the original super shortfall. On top of that, national interest is applied and compounds daily. Then there's a 60% administrative uplift applied to these combined amounts. So if the ATO becomes involved and the amount still hasn't been paid, an additional penalty of up to 50% of the unpaid amount can also apply. Importantly, that final penalty isn't tax deductible. The good news is that the rules around deductibility have improved. On-time contributions, late contributions, and the core super guarantee component are now generally tax deductible. So if you identify an issue early and correct it quickly, you can still claim most of those costs. However, what you can't claim are the interest charges and any late payment penalties once the ATO has formally assessed the debt. To put that into perspective, if a payment is missed and the ATO becomes involved, the total amount payable can be around 56% higher than the original super owed. If the matter remains unresolved after assessment, it can grow to more than double the original amount. So this isn't a small administrative mistake anymore, it's a significant financial risk. The key takeaway is simple. Automate your super payments wherever possible, keep your employee data accurate, and remove as many manual processes as you can. As you can see, the cost of getting it wrong has increased considerably. So in relation to employer readiness, the ATO recently shared some interesting statistics. Last year, 28% lodged payroll more than 7 days late on at least 3 occasions, and 14% completely missed 3 or more payroll events. These aren't necessarily poorly run businesses. Their business is relying on manual processes while balancing competing priorities. The good news is that you're all here today, which means you want to make sure your processes are as efficient as possible, which is where HeroClear comes into case, which we're going to have a look at shortly now. So to touch on the clearing options that are available in PayCat and Employment Hero Payroll. So there are 3 main approaches, and they each offer very different experiences when it comes to processing super contributions. The first option is manual standalone clearing solution, and I wouldn't really recommend this option. This involves exporting an SAFF file from your payroll system, logging it into an external clearinghouse, uploading the file, making the payment separately through your online banking, and then manually reconciling everything afterwards. Because you're moving between multiple systems, this process is quite disconnected. There are multiple handoffs, separate logins, and a lot more manual administration. While that might have been manageable when Super was only paid quarterly, under Payday Super, you'll potentially have to be repeating that process every week or every fortnight. So it's a lot of admin and greater chance of manual errors. And if something does go wrong, you might not find out until you log back into the clearinghouse. Where this option is useful is if there was some kind of an incorrect payment through the system and maybe you needed to manually process something, you can manually process an individual super payment through the system. Yeah, traditionally standalone clearinghouses were designed around quarterly super processing, so it's not really built for the faster real-time requirements that Payday Super has introduced. Now, the second option is one that I would say a lot of you use already. So it's the semi-integrated clearing solution, which is Beam. So this improves the manual process greatly. So it integrates some of the payroll data flow, but it is still only partially connected. So Beam is its own separate clearinghouse, and there's obviously direct integration with Paycat, so you do it all through Paycat. Payments are initiated from payroll, but approvals still sometimes have to happen separately through your bank, and confirmations might take longer to come back. So it means that if a payment fails or requires attention, it can still take time before you're aware of the issue. So while it's definitely a big step forward from a completely manual process, it still relies on multiple systems working together and doesn't provide complete visibility. So essentially, Paycat is talking to Beam, Beam is talking back to Paycat. So there is a little bit of a time lag when it comes to error handling and things like that. So the third option, which is the one that we're getting a lot of questions about, is HeroClear. And what HeroClear is Employment Hero's fully embedded super clearinghouse solution. So it's only come out recently in the last couple of months. It has been purpose-built specifically for Payday Super. So everything happens directly inside Employment Hero and Paycat payroll. There's no exporting files, no logging into separate clearinghouses, and no switching between banking platforms. Super contributions are all validated and processed automatically as part of every pay run. If there is an issue, you'll receive real-time feedback so you know immediately whether contributions have been received successfully or something needs correcting. So the result is fewer manual processes, fewer support requests, and significantly less compliance risks. It does work quite similarly to the way Beam works, but I will show you the full walkthrough now. Yeah, so at the end of the day, Payday Super doesn't just change when you pay Super, it changes how you need to pay it. Manual solutions rely heavily on people and repetitive processes. Semi-integrated solutions still rely on handoffs between different systems. HeroClear relies on automation, integration, and real-time visibility. So as Super has moved away from the quarterly payments to every pay cycle, the margin for error becomes much smaller, so having an automated and connected process becomes increasingly important. So I'm going to touch on the HeroClear demo now. So I'm going to go through the setup because we do have a lot of questions on the setup, specifically around the direct debit setup. And then I'm going to go through the whole process of actually submitting a super payment through HeroClear.
Hi guys, so this is going to be a quick guide on how to set up your HeroClear account. The first thing you'll need to do is go to payroll settings. So you're going to go to the suitcase icon, then payroll settings. And then from here, you're going to go to payments, which is the second on the list. And the first tab you should see is the HeroClear settings. If you don't have that, we can enable it for you. Just reach out to us. Now, before you enter the onboarding process, click the Get Started button. You'll see some important information here along with links to our terms and conditions and the privacy policy. Feel free to review those. And once you're happy, tick the confirmation checkbox to confirm that you've read and understood them. This will now enable the onboarding process. Initially, HeroClear is only available for superannuation. In the future, there will also be the option to pay wages by themselves or wages and superannuation in conjunction. So we'll select that option next, and that's going to bring us to the next step, which is to connect your bank account. We're going to need to establish a secure connection to your bank account so that we can collect the funds and then distribute those payments out to the super funds. So there are two options here. We can see there's Pay2 and there's direct debit. Pay2 is the newer option, newer method. It's receiving better support from banks, but currently many banks have a transaction limit of $25,000 per transaction. And support for business bank accounts can also be limited with this Pay2 option. The first thing to consider is your typical contribution amount. If it's generally under $25,000, we recommend at least attempting to set up Pay2 because it's a faster payment method and arguably a quicker setup process. Regardless, we would still recommend setting up direct debit. Even if you do use Pay2, it's worthwhile configuring direct debit as well. While it's a little bit more effort initially, it's a once-off setup. Once it's configured, you won't need to go through the process again. So to set up Pay2, we're going to simply enter the account number, the account name, and the BSB. Now, we're not going to submit this today because this is a production environment and I don't want to send a real Pay2 agreement request to someone. Whoever has access to the bank account should be aware they'll shortly receive a Pay2 agreement request. If that's you, great. If it's somebody else, just let them know it's coming. Now, if you're unsure how to accept a Pay2 agreement, you can simply Google your bank name followed by accept Pay2 agreement. Most banks provide instructions explaining the whole process. Once it's accepted, that's the end of the setup process, and you'll see it listed as an available payment method here. So it's very quick.
So that was setting up Pay2. So yeah, I've had a few questions on that. So it is a new payment method that is faster to process. So it is worth setting that up. Next, I'm going to go through the direct debit.
Now let's have a look at direct debit. So as I mentioned, it's a little bit more involved because it's a longer form. I'll quickly pause while I complete the remaining information. Okay, so I've completed the information here. You'll notice an option at the bottom asking whether a second authorizer is required. The person listed as the authorizer needs to be someone who can act on behalf of the company and has authority to approve bank transfers. If that's just one person, simply enter their details. If your organization requires dual authorization, tick the box and you'll be able to enter the second approver's information. When you continue, an email will be sent to the address you entered. If there are two approvers, they'll both receive the email. The first approver needs to sign first, followed by the second approver. So I'll jump over to my email now. Hopefully we've received the email asking us to sign the agreement. Perfect. Here it is. So the HeroClear direct debit agreement, it comes through from Dropbox Sign. Click Review and Sign, which opens Dropbox Sign with the document ready to review. So here we have the direct debit service request agreement. Feel free to read through it. It contains the information entered in the form. You can either scroll down to the signature section or click Get Started, which takes you directly there. And here's a beautiful signature. And we can hit Continue. And you'll receive a notice explaining this is a legally binding document. Click I agree to finish. Once signed, the notification is automatically sent back to us. At any point during the process, you can close the setup and come back later. You'll see the direct debit setup listed as pending. Simply click Set up direct debit again and you'll continue from where you left off. Now that the signed agreement has come through, the status automatically updates to pending account verification. So we've confirmed the document has been signed. The next step is that we'll send a small micro deposit to your bank account. Simply log into your online banking and look for the amount we've deposited. The screen says this can take 1 to 2 days, but in practice it's usually almost instant. If you check immediately, you should see the deposit. In my example, it's 11 cent. So in this deposit amount, I'm going to enter 11, click on verify amount, and success. So direct debit is now active on the account. Now that we have a funding account configured, we can continue to the next step, which is selecting our default super fund. Simply search for the fund, select it, and click proceed. And that completes this step. Now, the final step is simply reviewing everything we've configured and then enabling HeroClear here. So once we click this, congratulations, you've now successfully enabled.
Perfect. So that's enabling HeroClear and setting up the two different payment methods. Where I'm getting a lot of questions in relation to the direct debit setup is that deposit amount. It's a little bit unclear. So you will actually get a deposit once you sign the direct debit agreement into your account. You should be able to see whatever number of cents has been deposited, you enter that in, and then that should be HeroClear set up for direct debit. Finally, I'll just go through what submitting a super payment looks like in HeroClear.
Next, I'm going to demonstrate how easy it is to pay super using HeroClear. So I'm an employer, so the first thing I'll do is start a new pay run. I'm paying employees on a weekly pay schedule. So I'm going to select that here and create my pay run. So here's my pay run. I'm happy with everything. Everything looks correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Finalize Pay Run. In this pop-up, you will now see, or once I have the pay run finalized, you can see there's a Create Super Payment button here, which I'm going to click. When I click this, HeroClear creates a super batch directly from the pay run, including all of the relevant information to review. So here I can see all of my super funds, super payments for my employees. You'll notice we've also identified an issue on one of the employees here, Brian. HeroClear validates contribution data before submission to help ensure payments are processed correctly and on time. In this case, Brian's TFN details need updating. So I'm going to click the wrench icon to open Brian's employee file. I'm going to go into his tax file declaration. And now I'm going to update his tax file number. So I have that updated. I'm going to close that tab, return to the super batch, and now I'm going to click on validate. And you can see a new button appears. We've corrected the employee information, so now we simply need to click refresh employee data. That's going to update the new employee information. And now the validation is passing successfully. So no more issues have been found. I'm now going to click submit. For this example, I'm going to use pay to. So I'm going to submit the payment. And now we should have a dashboard which shows the payment has been successfully submitted. You'll also see the payment timeline, which is useful. So the batch has been created, we can see here. It's been submitted to HeroClear. It's currently uploading the contributions to funds. The next stage is pay to funds collection, then it's distribute to super funds, and then distribution to all funds. So the payment moves through these stages quite quickly. I can also review all of the payment details here. Now let's have a look to see what happens if there is an error. Here we go. Now, the most common error is when the member can't be matched by the super fund. For example, the employee might have changed funds without your knowledge. In that situation, the screen would instead display errors returned by funds, which we can see here. You'll receive detailed information explaining why the details didn't match the member's account. For example, the supplied member details didn't match the member account. If funds are returned, that information is also displayed here. HeroClear goes a step further by notifying the employee as well, where appropriate, if they need to update their superfund details. We're effectively following up with them on your behalf. And new workflows will continue being introduced into HeroClear to ensure these types of issues can be resolved as quickly as possible while reducing the administrative overhead for employers.
Yeah, so that's a little overview of HeroClear. So you can see the process is quite similar to Beam, but there is a little bit of additional helpful things throughout the process of HeroClear. So, for example, if an employee has the incorrect super details and it comes back with an error, it's going to automatically send the employee an email to let them know that their super fund is incorrect and that the information needs to be updated. And it also has that real-time processing with the employee data as well. We saw the employee Brian had the wrong tax file number. We went onto Brian's file, we went back into the super fund or the super batch, refreshed the data, and that pulled through all of the updated information. Whereas when you're using an integrated system, when you create that initial super batch, if any of the information is wrong, you update it on the employee file. You need to delete the batch and recreate it. So just a few kind of small differences there. Are many of you guys using HeroClear already? I know we're seeing a lot moving over to it. Oh, are you guys not able to hear me again? Okay, you guys can hear me, perfect. Okay, great. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just get up some of the frequently asked questions around HeroClear. Because yeah, I'm seeing a lot of recurring questions. So let's just clear all of this up. First is what exactly will HeroClear be billed, or how exactly? What will it cost for weekly pay runs and businesses with multiple employing entities? So one of the most common questions is the cost. HeroClear is charged at 20 cents per employee per super batch. So for example, if you're running a weekly pay run with 20 employees, that's $4 per pay run, or roughly $200 per year. The pricing is the same whether you have single employing entities or multiple employing entities. If you continue to use Beam or you're using Beam, it's 30 cents per employee per batch. So there's a 10-cent difference there. Why does super clearing cost money now? It used to be free. So this is a great question. Payday Super is the biggest change to super processing since SuperStream was introduced back in 2014. So moving from quarterly payments to every pay cycle means clearinghouses now need to process payments much more frequently. They need to validate employee data in real time, manage payment confirmations, and handle returned contributions much faster than before. So it requires new infrastructure across payroll providers, banks, clearinghouses, and super funds. If you prefer, there is the manual process where you can export the file, and that is still available at no cost, but fully integrated and automated clearing solutions now have operating costs because of the additional technology and the compliance requirements involved. Do I have to switch to HeroClear? No, not at all. You're free to continue using any clearing service if you choose. So if you're using Beam and you want to continue, feel free. PayCat will continue supporting manual exports and semi-integrated clearing options. HeroClear has simply been designed specifically for Payday Super. Because it's embedded directly into payroll, it automates much of the process. It validates the employee information before submission and helps reduce manual administration and compliance risks. How do I get started? If you're already an existing PayCat payroll customer, you simply have to navigate to the payments section within the payroll settings, and from there you'll be able to activate HeroClear. There is probably a notification on your dashboard as well about how you can set it up too. Is there step-by-step instructions? Absolutely. I have a guide that I can send you if you need step-by-step walkthrough on the setup, or alternatively, I can send you the video that I've just went through there. So this was a question before 1st of July that we were getting a lot, but I already do pay super weekly or fortnightly. Will anything change? We're getting questions, is there anything that you need to do, need to upgrade or anything like that in order to start paying Payday Super? If you're already paying Super every pay cycle, you're in a really good position. You don't actually have to change anything. If you were already running your Super per pay run via Beam, you can just continue doing that. There's no upgrades, nothing like that you need to do. The important thing is that you just need your Super payments to remain aligned with your pay cycle. So for example, if you run payroll weekly, Super has to be paid weekly. If you run fortnightly, Super has to be paid fortnightly. You won't be able to run a weekly payroll while only paying Super fortnightly, because the ATO will use your STP reporting to determine when the 7 business day payment window begins. If a clearinghouse or a payment provider experiences delays, who is responsible? Ultimately, the legal responsibility still sits with the employer. That's why it's important to keep records showing when your payments were submitted. If something outside your control causes a delay, having a clear audit trail will help demonstrate that you acted appropriately. It's also recommended that employers submit Super payments as early as possible rather than waiting until the end of the 7-day window. Just room for error. Does the 7-day deadline still apply if wages were paid on time? Yes, the 7 business day clock starts from your payroll event. So paying employees on time doesn't delay the Super obligation. Wages and Super are now closely linked, so both need to be completed within the required time frame. If I discover an underpayment or payroll error, what happens? So if you've underpaid Super, the ATO recommends lodging a Super guarantee statement or making a voluntary disclosure. Doing this voluntarily may reduce some of the additional charges that would otherwise have applied. Corrections can either be processed as an out-of-cycle payment or included in the next payroll. But just note, if you do wait till the next payroll and that falls outside the 7 business day window, Super guarantee charges might still apply. Are there any exemptions for charities, micro businesses, or seasonal employers? No, the legislation applies equally to all employers required to pay Super guarantee contributions. There are no exemptions based on business size or industry or organization type. What happens if a Super contribution is rejected by the fund? So if a contribution is rejected because, for example, an employee might have changed funds or their details don't match, you will be notified as soon as that information is received from the fund. HeroClear also performs validations before payments are submitted to help identify many issues before they become rejected contributions. Super funds themselves are required to process returns within 3 business days, helping employers to resolve issues quickly. What if an employee hasn't provided their Super fund details? So you can't simply withhold the payment. If an employee hasn't nominated a fund, you'll need to complete a stapled fund search through the ATO. If there isn't a stapled fund available, you need to pay the contribution into your default fund. For new employees, there's a 20 business day time frame for the first contribution, giving employers additional time to complete this process. Using digital onboarding and employee self-service helps automate the fund selection and validating before payroll is processed. How are corrections and reconciliations handled? HeroClear includes reconciliation reporting that shows whether payments have been successfully processed. If payments are returned or errors occur, those will also be displayed within the platform so they can be actioned quickly. What happens if super is paid incorrectly? Unfortunately, recovering money from a super fund is not always straightforward. Employers generally need to work directly with the super fund to request a refund, and the fund will assess each request individually. How are payments processed? HeroClear supports both Pay2 and direct debit. We walked through that earlier. Pay2 provides near real-time payments where supported by the bank. Direct debits typically process within around 48 hours. Both options comfortably fit within the new compliance timeframes when payments are submitted promptly, but Pay2 is faster. Can HeroClear also pay wages? So not yet, but HeroClear currently only processes super contributions, but wages will continue to be paid using your existing payroll processes, such as an ABA file, but it is in the pipeline with future enhancements planned to support wage payments and other payroll-related payments through the same infrastructure. So they are the main questions. Megan asked the cost of HeroClear or Beam. So I mentioned HeroClear is 20 cents per employee per batch, whereas Beam is 30 cents per employee per batch. And I would definitely strongly recommend you moving over to one of those systems. If the super details are not correct and the employee is not addressing this within 7 days, will the system automatically pay the amount to the default fund? No, it won't. It won't. So when you go to pay your super payment, it's just going to show an error for that employee because there won't be any fund on file. It's not going to allow you to make the payment. You can exclude that employee from the batch and pay everyone else, or you can assign a default fund as well. But no, it won't automatically pay. We get a failed verification report, but the super fund confirmed not issued on the side, and they received the money and applied to the staff. So unsure why we keep getting the verification failed message. Okay, I'll need to have a look at that one. Are you using HeroClear or Beam for this question here? That might be something that you'll need to push through to support, actually. Okay, you're using Beam. Yeah, if you want to send that issue through to the support team, support@paycat.com.au, and we can have a look at that instance. Is there a way to fix super details in a pay run, or do they have to be excluded from the batch? So yeah, Lorinda, you can change, it wouldn't be from the pay run, but you can fix the employee's super details after you've created the batch. We saw that in HeroClear where we changed their TFN, so you can do the same thing for the super details, and then you can just refresh the data in the super batch. It wouldn't be in the pay run though. Yeah, so I hope you guys feel like you have a little bit more clarity around HeroClear and how that works, and you feel a little bit more confident with Payday Super because yeah, it has just creeped up on us and there's a lot going on at the moment with end of financial year. But yeah, essentially, if you're using Beam and you are already running your super per pay run, you can just continue with the same process. Just make sure you do it within the 7 business days. Ideally, you'd be doing it the same day as your pay run, so that you have the time frame of the 7 days to fix any errors that yeah, with refunds or incorrect information or anything like that. And yeah, if you are interested in switching over to HeroClear, again, there's no cost to switch over. It is actually cheaper to use HeroClear. And if you want assistance with the setup or you need that video guide sent through to you, just reach out to our support team and we can send you a link. But yeah, the recording of this will be up online within 24 hours. And thank you again, everyone, for joining. I hope end of financial year isn't too hectic for everyone. Good luck with all of your reconciliations. And yeah, again, if you need any assistance with anything, please reach out to our support team. Thanks, guys.